The old farmhouse stood quietly on a hill, its paint a little faded, just like the memories inside. Here lived Agent Myers, a man who once chased bad guys and uncovered big secrets for the FBI. But that was a long time ago. Now his days were filled with tending his garden and watching the clouds drift by. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. He was retired, enjoying a peaceful life, far from the hurried pace of his past. Yet, a very special secret had been resting in his heart for many, many years, like a heavy stone he couldn't quite put down. It was a secret about something incredible, something most people laughed about. Today, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Agent Myers felt a strong pull. He knew it was time. It was time to finally share the truth about why Bigfoot bodies were never found. He took a deep breath, the quiet of the evening broken only by the chirping crickets. Agent Myers sat back in his worn armchair, the secret now ready to spill. He started by explaining that his time with the FBI wasn't always about catching regular criminals. "You see," he began, his voice a low rumble, "the world is full of things that don't make sense, things that scare people or make them wonder." He leaned forward slightly. "And for some of those things, there was a special group." He paused, remembering. "I was part of a very secret team. We weren't known by many, not even by most other agents. Our job was to look into the strange stuff, the unexplained. Think of ghosts, UFOs, and, well, Bigfoot." He chuckled softly, a dry, tired sound. "Yes, Bigfoot. People laugh. But when reports came in, not just whispers, but real, honest accounts from good people, our team was sent to investigate. We chased down leads, talked to witnesses, tried to find answers in the shadowy corners of the world, especially when it came to those big, furry giants. Our missions were always urgent." Agent Myers continued, his gaze distant as if seeing the forests again. "When a credible report came in, especially one about a Bigfoot sighting, we packed our bags and moved fast. We knew time was important, like trying to catch smoke." He described how his team, small and nimble, would often arrive at remote locations, deep in the wilderness, sometimes within hours of a sighting. "It wasn't like in the movies, with big lights and a parade," he explained. "We were quiet, careful, and almost every time, we'd find something. Not just a fuzzy photo or a shaky video, but real signs." He remembered huge footprints in soft mud, much bigger than any human or bear. There were snapped branches high off the ground, as if something incredibly strong had walked through, breaking them without effort. Sometimes, they'd even find a faint, musky smell in the air, a scent that hinted something large and wild had just passed by. "It told us we weren't chasing ghosts," he said softly, "but something real. Something that had been there very, very recently. One particular case still sticks with me, clear as day," Agent Myers recalled, his eyes narrowing slightly as if reliving the moment. "It was late autumn, leaves turning gold and red in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. A group of experienced hikers, not easily scared folks, stumbled upon something truly unsettling. He explained that these hikers reported seeing a massive, hairy creature, much taller than any man, moving slowly and with great difficulty through a thick part of the forest. They said it made a sound, a sort of low moan, like something was in pain." Myers continued, his voice hushed. "They watched it from afar, hidden, and swore it looked hurt, maybe even badly injured. They even thought They thought it might have fallen and passed away somewhere deeper in the woods. That's why they called us. They didn't want to get too close, but they knew it was important. A Bigfoot, possibly hurt or worse, was a chance we couldn't miss. It was the kind of report that made our hearts race with a mix of dread and hope. The moment that call came in, our team sprang into action like a coiled spring. Agent Myers recounted, his voice gaining a hurried edge. A hurt or possibly deceased Bigfoot? This was it. This was the chance we had been waiting for, the one we'd chased through countless dark forests and whispered rumors. He described the rush to get to the remote mountain area. They moved with a silent urgency, their gear packed tight, their minds racing with possibilities. We weren't just looking for signs this time, he emphasized. We were hoping for the undeniable proof. A body, if it truly had passed. Or at the very least, a clear photograph. Something that couldn't be argued away or called a trick of the light. This was the moment that could change everything. Not just for their secret team, but for the whole world. The thought of finally holding a piece of Bigfoot, of proving its existence beyond a doubt, filled them with a mix of fierce determination and nervous excitement. They pushed through the dense woods, every rustle of leaves sounding like a clue. Pushing through the dense undergrowth, Agent Myers and his team finally reached the area the hikers had described. The first thing they noticed was the ground. It was churned up, like a giant animal had struggled there. Then they saw them, enormous footprints pressed deep into the soft earth, far too big for any human. These weren't just impressions. They were clear, unmistakable marks of something huge. Nearby, several thick tree branches, high above their heads, were snapped clean off, dangling like broken arms. It looked as if something incredibly powerful had simply walked through them without a care. A faint, earthy, almost wild smell hung in the cool mountain air, different from anything they'd ever smelled. More than the visible signs, there was a strange quiet, a heavy stillness that settled over the forest. It felt different. The birds weren't singing, and the usual forest sounds were missing. Agent Myers described it as if the very air hummed with a recent, profound event. A feeling that something important, perhaps even sad, had just unfolded there. Following the trail of giant footprints, which led deeper into a less traveled part of the woods, the team discovered something truly unexpected. It was tucked away, almost swallowed by thick bushes and hanging vines. Agent Myers recounted, a hint of awe still in his voice. A cave, not a big grand opening, but a clever hiding spot, almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. As they cautiously approached, the faint musky smell grew stronger. Inside the mouth of the cave, the ground was soft with damp earth, and there, unmistakable in the dim light, were more prints. These weren't just big, Myers explained, his voice hushed. These were massive, wide, and clearly furry paw prints. They were much, much bigger than any bear print I'd ever seen, bigger than anything any animal we knew could make. The prints led right into the darkness of the cave, a clear path inward. The discovery sent a shiver of excitement and fear through the team. They were closer than ever. As the team prepared to enter the cave, their senses were hit by another odd detail. Right at the mouth of that cave, growing in thick patches, were these plants. Agent Myers explained, scrunching his nose slightly at the memory. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen in the wild. Their leaves were dark and broad, and they gave off a very strong, almost biting smell. It wasn't a sweet smell or a rotten one, but something sharp and earthy, a bit like very strong herbs mixed with something else wild. It was so strong, it almost made your eyes water, he recalled. And they weren't just growing there by chance. They were arranged, almost like a fence, right around the cave's opening. It seemed as if these strange, strong-smelling plants were purposely placed. It felt like a natural barrier, Myers concluded, a way to keep others out, or maybe even to mask the smell of whatever was inside. It made us wonder if Bigfoot was not just hiding, but actively protecting its home. With the strange plants behind them and the giant prints leading inward, Agent Myers and his team readied themselves. Entering that cave felt like stepping into another world, he remembered, his voice low with the weight of the memory. We moved slowly, one foot in front of the other, our senses on high alert. The air inside was cool and damp, carrying that same musky, wild scent. Each agent held a powerful flashlight, their beams piercing the thick darkness. As they walked deeper, the narrow shafts of light danced across the rough cave walls, making long, spooky shadows jump and twist. Every drip of water, every distant echo, made them pause and listen closely. You could feel the silence in there, Myers said. It wasn't empty silence. It was a watchful silence, as if something was holding its breath just beyond our sight. They knew they were in a place where no human was meant to be, following a path carved by a creature of legend. Their hearts pounded with a mix of excitement and deep, chilling fear. Deeper inside the cave, past a turn in the winding passage, their flashlights revealed something truly astonishing. We all stopped dead in our tracks, Agent Myers recalled, his voice tinged with the wonder of that moment. There, in a slightly wider part of the cave, was a bed. It wasn't a human bed, of course. It was a very large, rough circle of carefully arranged leaves, moss, and broken branches, piled high and soft. It looked like something had made itself a cozy place to sleep, or perhaps to rest while healing, Myers explained. The sheer size of it was startling. It was easily big enough for a very large bear, or something even bigger. The leaves were still somewhat fresh, and the branches looked recently gathered. It was clear that whatever had been using it was not small, and it had been there quite recently, he added, a shiver going through him. The discovery was both thrilling and chilling, proving that the cave was indeed a dwelling, a hidden home for the creature they sought. The sight of the crude bed was enough to make their hearts pound. But then Agent Myers knelt down, shining his flashlight closer. That's when we found the real treasure, he whispered, his eyes gleaming with the memory. Stuck to the rough leaves and twigs of the bed, we found a few strands of hair. These weren't just any hairs. They were incredibly thick, dark, and coarse, much thicker than human hair, and unlike the fur of any animal Myers had ever studied or seen in all his years of outdoor work. It was almost like wire, but still soft, he described, running a hand through his own thinning hair. And the color was a deep, dark brown, almost black, perfectly blending with the shadows of the cave. They carefully collected the samples, placing them in special evidence bags. This hair was proof, solid and touchable. It didn't match bear, deer, or any other creature listed in their wildlife books. It was unique, strong evidence left behind by the cave's mysterious inhabitant, confirming that something truly unknown had been resting there. With the strange hair safely bagged, a powerful mix of feelings washed over Agent Myers and his team. It was like a jolt of electricity, he described, his eyes wide. We were so excited, almost giddy. Here we were, in a hidden cave, with solid proof that something unknown, something legendary, was real. The thought that they were on the very edge of revealing Bigfoot to the world made their hearts pound. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was history in the making. But with that excitement came a deep, chilling fear. What exactly were we about to find? He wondered aloud. The hikers said it was hurt. Was it still here, hiding in the dark? What if it wasn't friendly? The cave felt alive with possibility and danger. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret. Every sound was magnified. They were closer than anyone had ever been, standing at the doorstep of a creature thought to be a myth. And the weight of that truth was both thrilling and terrifying. The mix of excitement and fear in the air was suddenly shattered. It came out of nowhere, a sound that filled the whole cave. Agent Myers said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. A very deep, very low rumble, not like a bear or a mountain lion, but something bigger. It wasn't just a sound they heard. It was a sound they felt. The rumble vibrated through the damp cave floor, a low growl that shook the ground ever so slightly beneath their feet. It was like the cave itself was growling. Myers explained, his hand instinctively going to his chest as if to calm his own beating heart. The sound seemed to come from deeper within the twisting passages, beyond where their flashlights could reach. It was a warning, clear and powerful, telling them they were not alone. All thoughts of capturing hair samples or proving existence flew from their minds, replaced by a primal instinct to freeze, to listen, and to understand the meaning of that earth-shaking sound. They stood perfectly still, flashlights aimed, waiting for whatever was next. The rumbling growl echoed again, deeper and longer this time, a sound so raw and ancient it seemed to come from the very earth itself. It wasn't just loud. It was like being inside a giant drum. Agent Myers recalled, his voice tight. The sound waves hit us, pushed against us. It was powerful, truly powerful. Every member of the team, hardened agents who had faced many dangers, froze instantly. Their feet felt glued to the damp cave floor. We just stopped, he explained, a distant look in his eyes. All movement, all thought, just stopped. We were like statues. The growl filled their ears, vibrating through their bones. And in that moment of complete stillness, they could hear their own hearts beating, fast and hard, a frantic drumbeat against the powerful rumble of the unknown creature. It wasn't just fear that held them, but a deep, primal respect for the sheer force they were now facing. The air was thick with tension, and the only sound was that mighty growl and the frantic thumping of their own terrified hearts. The deep growl faded, leaving behind an even heavier silence. Agent Myers and his team stood frozen, their flashlights fixed on the darkness ahead. Then, slowly, from the very back of the deep cavern, 2 pinpricks of light appeared. At first, I thought it was just our lights reflecting off something wet, Myers confessed, his voice barely audible. But then they grew brighter, steadier. He described them as 2 very large, glowing yellow eyes. Not like an animal's eyes in the dark, which usually glow red or green from reflected light, but truly glowing from within. They were huge, he emphasized, and they were staring right at us, unblinking, watching every move even though we weren't moving. The eyes were set wide apart, giving a terrifying hint of the size of the head they belonged to. In that moment, all their training, all their experience melted away. They were simply humans, face to face with an unknown, powerful force. Seeing those glowing yellow eyes emerge from the deep, dark heart of the mountain. The glowing yellow eyes held them captive, unmoving. Then, with a slow, deliberate rhythm, one eye blinked, then the other. It was watching us, studying us, Agent Myers recounted, his voice still full of wonder and a touch of fear. And then, very slowly, a huge, dark shape began to move behind those eyes. Their flashlights, though powerful, struggled to fully light up the immense form that now shifted in the deep shadows. It was massive, he emphasized, shaking his head slightly. Much bigger than any man, taller and wider. Even bigger than the largest bear I'd ever seen. The creature seemed to unfold itself, its dark, furry outline becoming a little clearer against the even darker cave wall. It moved with a quiet power, a sense of immense strength held in check. It wasn't a sudden jump or a quick dash. It was a slow, deliberate rising, a gentle turning of its enormous body. Every movement spoke of ancient wisdom and a powerful, wild presence. They weren't looking at a myth anymore. They were looking at a living, breathing giant. As the immense shape fully emerged from the shadows, bathed in the dancing light of their flashlights, Agent Myers could only stare. "We came in here looking for a body," he confessed, his voice heavy with the memory. "We were ready to find proof of death, to finally solve a mystery with remains." But what they saw was anything but lifeless. It was alive, a living, breathing Bigfoot, he stated with absolute certainty. A shiver ran down his spine, even now. The fear was real, a cold knot in my stomach. Facing something that big, something so wild and unknown, is terrifying. Yet mixed with that fear was an overpowering sense of wonder. I was also completely amazed. This wasn't a blurry photo or a tall tale. It was right there in front of us. The creature was majestic, powerful, and utterly real. It stood there, a silent giant in its ancient home, and the realization hit them all. They were not just on the trail of a legend, they were looking at the legend itself. The Bigfoot stood tall, its dark form filling a large part of the cavern. Agent Myers expected it to charge, to let out another fearsome roar, but it didn't. It just stood there, he recalled, his voice full of disbelief even now. It didn't attack us. It didn't even take a step forward. Instead, those glowing yellow eyes, now fully visible, seemed to look at each agent in turn. It was watching us, Myers explained. Not with anger, but with something else. Maybe it was curious, wondering what these small, light-carrying creatures were doing in its home. Or perhaps, he thought, it was a silent warning. A powerful, unspoken message that they had come too far, seen too much, and needed to leave. The air was thick with this unspoken communication. The Bigfoot remained still, a massive, silent guardian. It seemed to be studying them, deciding what to do, its presence filling the cave with a quiet authority that commanded respect and fear all at once. After what felt like an eternity, the Bigfoot shifted. It didn't make any sudden moves, Agent Myers recounted, his voice still filled with awe. Very slowly, it turned its massive body away from us. It was a deliberate, unhurried motion, as if it had made a decision. Then the creature began to walk. And this is the part that still amazes me, he continued, leaning forward in his chair. Something that big, that heavy, moving across a rocky cave floor, and it made no sound. None at all. It was a ghost-like silence for such a giant. Its huge form simply melted into the deeper shadows of the cavern, the glowing yellow eyes slowly fading from view until they were gone. One moment, they were staring at a living legend. The next, it had vanished as if it were never there. The only proof it had existed were the lingering musky smell, the massive bed, the hair samples, and the pounding hearts of Agent Myers and his team. The creature had simply chosen to disappear, leaving them in stunned silence. In the echoing silence of the cave, after the Bigfoot had vanished, Agent Myers and his team slowly came back to themselves. The initial shock began to fade, replaced by a profound understanding. That encounter changed everything for us, Myers stated firmly. We went in thinking we might find a body, an easy piece of evidence. But seeing the creature alive and witnessing its silent, clever retreat taught them a powerful lesson. We realized then how truly smart Bigfoot must be, he explained. To move so quietly, to hide itself so well in such a vast wilderness, even when the hikers thought it was hurt or dying. The creature hadn't just disappeared. It had melted away, leaving no sound, no further trace. It showed a deep knowledge of its environment and an almost magical ability to become one with the shadows. It wasn't just big and strong, Myers mused. It was cunning. It was a master of its own hidden world, able to evade even the most skilled trackers, even when it might have been at its weakest. That cave incident was just one of many, Agent Myers continued, a sigh escaping him. It taught us a lot, but it also made us realize how often we'd been close, only for Bigfoot to slip away at the very last moment. He shook his head, a mix of frustration and grudging admiration on his face. He explained that throughout his years on the special team, this pattern repeated itself. There were countless times they would follow fresh tracks, hear distant calls, or find clear signs of a recent presence, feeling certain they were about to catch sight of a Bigfoot. We'd be so close you could almost taste it, he remembered, our cameras ready, our hearts pounding. And then, nothing. Just an empty clearing, a broken trail, or a sudden, eerie silence. It was as if the creatures had a sixth sense, an uncanny ability to know exactly when humans were closing in, and then simply vanish into the dense wilderness, leaving only a hint of their passing. The cave was unique because they actually saw one. But the outcome was still the same. Bigfoot remained a mystery, just out of reach. There was another time, even more puzzling, Agent Myers shared, his brow furrowed in thought. This was a report from a seasoned hunter, a man who knew the woods like the back of his hand and wasn't prone to making up stories. The hunter had been tracking deer in a very rugged, rocky part of the mountains, high up near some steep cliffs. He swore he saw a huge, dark, furry creature, much like the Bigfoot we saw in the cave, near the edge of a very high cliff. Myers explained. And then, to his horror, he watched it fall. The hunter described a terrible sound, a thud and a crash, as the massive form tumbled down the sheer rock face, disappearing into the dense forest far below. He was certain it was a fatal fall, Myers added. No creature, not even a bear, could survive a drop like that. This was exactly the kind of report they needed, a direct witness to a potentially deceased Bigfoot. Their hopes soared, believing this would finally be the breakthrough. Filled with renewed purpose, Agent Myers' team quickly mobilized. We moved faster than ever on that one, he explained, his voice reflecting the urgency they felt. A direct fall, a reliable witness. This had to be it, the body. They hiked for hours through rugged terrain, following the hunter's precise directions to the base of the cliff. The spot where the hunters said the creature had landed was easy to find. The ground was all torn up, Myers described, a frown creasing his face. Trees were splintered, bushes flattened, and there was a huge impact mark, like something very, very heavy had crashed down there. It was undeniable proof that something enormous had fallen from the cliff. But then came the baffling part. We searched for days, he recalled, a hint of weariness in his tone. Every inch of that area, every nook and cranny. We expected to find a body, or at least some bones, some blood, a clear sign. Yet they found nothing. Absolutely nothing, except for the disturbed ground. The body, if it had ever been there, was gone. It was baffling. Truly maddening. Agent Myers sighed, shaking his head at the memory of the empty cliff base. We had the hunter's clear story, the huge impact marks, the broken trees. Everything pointed to something massive having landed right there. The ground was so deeply disturbed, it looked like a small car had fallen. But the creature itself? It was gone, he explained, frustration still evident in his voice after all these years. Not a single hair, no blood, no bones, nothing that would tell us what had happened to it. It was as if the heavy creature had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the wreckage of its fall. It left no trace, Myers repeated, emphasizing the strange absence. How could something so big, supposedly fatally injured, just disappear without a single clue? This incident, more than any other, cemented the mystery of the missing Bigfoot bodies. It challenged all their scientific knowledge and understanding of how nature worked. The forest held its secrets tight, and Bigfoot, it seemed, was the master of vanishing acts. The sheer impossibility of the cliff incident, a massive creature simply vanishing after a fatal fall, made Agent Myers consider something new. After that, we started thinking differently, he mused, tapping his chin thoughtfully. It wasn't just about Bigfoot being smart. It was about community. He began to wonder if Bigfoot wasn't a lone creature, but part of a family or a group. What if they watch out for each other? He asked, looking out his window at the darkening woods. If one gets hurt, or even if one passes away, maybe the others come to help. It would make sense, he reasoned. Something that big and heavy couldn't just get up and walk away after such a fall, not alone. Perhaps they have a way of carrying their injured or their dead away, deep into places we can't reach, Myers suggested. This idea, that Bigfoot might have a social structure and a strong bond, made their disappearing acts even more profound. It wasn't just a clever escape. It was a loving, protective act by a family trying to keep their secrets safe. If Bigfoot truly lives in families and helps its own, then they must have secret places, Agent Myers continued, building on his theory. Places humans rarely, if ever, find. He thought about the vast, untouched wilderness, full of hidden corners. Think about it, he urged. Deep caves, much like the one we found, but perhaps even more remote, with winding tunnels that go on for miles. Places so dark and hidden, even our best equipment struggles to reach them. He also considered another possibility. Or perhaps, he suggested, his eyes widening slightly, they use water, deep, cold mountain lakes, or hidden underwater caves. A body sunk in those depths would be incredibly hard to find, maybe impossible. These places would be perfect hiding spots, not just for a moment, but forever. It would explain why no clear body had ever surfaced, why no bones had been found by hikers or animals. Bigfoot, or its kin, might be deliberately using these natural features as final resting places, keeping their existence a secret even in death. Beyond the idea of family help and secret hiding spots, Agent Myers also believed Bigfoot possessed an extraordinary sense for danger. It's not just about strength or smarts, he explained, tapping his temple. It's like they have a sixth sense, a very strong feeling for when humans are nearby. He described how his team, despite their best stealth training, would often find their targets gone just as they got close. They seemed to know we were coming long before we ever saw them, Myers mused. Even if we were downwind, moving silently, they'd simply vanish. He believed Bigfoot were masters of their environment, able to pick up the smallest changes in the forest. A snapped twig, a faint human scent carried on the breeze, or even the slight vibrations of approaching footsteps. And when they decide to move, he added, they do it with amazing speed and quietness. Something that big shouldn't be able to move like a shadow, but they do. It's like they become part of the forest, instantly disappearing without a sound, leaving us to wonder if we ever saw anything at all. There's another idea that has always stayed with me, Agent Myers revealed, his voice thoughtful. The reports from the hikers about the Bigfoot being hurt, and then the one from the hunter about the fatal fall. What if Bigfoot can heal itself incredibly fast? He explained his theory. Imagine a creature with such powerful bodies that cuts and breaks mend much quicker than a human's, maybe even faster than most animals. This special ability would help them recover from injuries, like the one the hikers saw, allowing them to escape danger before humans could get too close. If they can heal very quickly, Myers reasoned, then even a bad fall might not be fatal for long. They could recover enough strength to move themselves, or be moved by their family, to a safe, hidden place before any search party arrived. This fast healing ability would be another key to their amazing vanishing act, making it almost impossible to ever find an injured or recently deceased Bigfoot. It was a wild idea, but in a world with Bigfoot, anything seemed possible. And then there's a simpler, yet equally puzzling idea, Agent Myers mused, tapping his fingers on the armrest of his chair. What if, when a Bigfoot passes away, its body just disappears into nature very, very quickly? He explained that in some forest environments, especially those rich with insects, fungi, and damp earth, organic matter breaks down at an astonishing rate. Think about how quickly a deer carcass can vanish in a dense forest, picked clean by scavengers, then absorbed by the soil, Myers suggested. Now imagine a creature perfectly adapted to that environment, perhaps with body chemistry that allows it to break down even faster. This theory would mean that even if a Bigfoot did die in the open, its body might not last long enough for humans to find it. No bones, no fur, nothing left behind, he said, shaking his head. It would simply return to the earth, leaving no trace for us to discover. It's a very humbling thought, that nature itself could be Bigfoot's ultimate secret keeper. Agent Myers took a deep breath, his expression turning serious. All those natural reasons I just talked about, the smarts, the hiding, the fast healing, the quick breakdown, they explain a lot, he said. But there's another, more unsettling part to this mystery, one that involves human hands. He leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. During my time on the special team, I started to notice a pattern, not just with Bigfoot, but with how our own government acted. He hinted that there might be a bigger, more organized effort at play, one that worked behind the scenes. What if, he proposed, it's not just Bigfoot hiding from us? What if, when a Bigfoot is found, or even nearly found, someone else steps in? Someone who doesn't want the world to know the truth. This idea added a new, darker layer to the mystery, suggesting that the elusive nature of Bigfoot wasn't purely natural, but also carefully managed. The possibility that bodies were found, but then made to disappear by powerful people, was a chilling thought. My team, the one that investigated these strange cases, was called Special Investigations Unit Delta, Agent Myers revealed, his voice now low and serious. And from our very first day, we were given strict orders. Everything we did, everything we found, was to be kept a complete secret. He explained that this wasn't just about being quiet. It was about hiding the truth from everyone, even other parts of the government. Any evidence we collected, no matter how small or how important, was never ours to keep, Myers said, a hint of old anger in his eyes. We'd bag it, mark it, and then a higher-ranking agent, someone we rarely saw, would come and take it away. We never knew where it went or what happened to it. It was a constant rule. The unique hair samples from the cave, the casts of giant footprints, even the detailed reports they wrote. All of it disappeared into a hidden system. We were told it was for national security. He scoffed softly. But it felt more like a cover-up, a very careful, very organized cover-up. The system was very clear, Agent Myers continued, his voice tight with a lingering sense of injustice. We found something, we reported it, and it was gone, always by someone above us. He looked around his quiet living room, as if checking for listening ears, a habit from his old life. It made me think, he whispered, that my small team wasn't at the top of the chain. There had to be another group, a much bigger, much more powerful one, working even more in the shadows. He hinted at this secret group, a shadowy organization with vast resources. Their job, I believe, was to make sure that no Bigfoot evidence, no matter how solid, ever saw the light of day. Before a hunter could get a clear photo, before a scientist could study a body, this group would step in and sweep it all away. It wasn't just Bigfoot being good at hiding. It was an active human effort to keep the truth from the public, making sure no one outside a select few ever knew what was really out there. But why? Agent Myers pondered, leaning back again, a troubled look on his face. Why go to such great lengths to keep Bigfoot a secret? What reason would the government have for hiding such an amazing discovery from the world? He listed the possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. Maybe they think the public would panic, he suggested. Imagine the fear, the chaos, if everyone knew there were giants living in our forests. Or perhaps, he thought, it was about money. New land to protect, new laws, maybe even new industries if Bigfoot was real. It could change so much. He also considered darker reasons. What if they want to study them in secret, to learn from them, or even try to control them without anyone knowing? The idea that powerful people were making these decisions, keeping such a huge truth hidden, bothered him deeply. It wasn't just about protecting Bigfoot. It was about controlling information and keeping the world in the dark for reasons no one outside that secret circle understood. Agent Myers shifted in his chair, a flicker of old frustration crossing his face. I remember one time, deep in the mountains of Oregon, we were investigating a fresh sighting, he began. We found a small patch of very strange fur caught on a broken branch. It was dark, thick, and stiff, just like the hair we found in the cave, but a bit longer. He held up his hand, showing with his fingers how small the piece was. It was only a few strands, really tiny. But I knew, just by looking at it and feeling it, that it wasn't from any deer, bear, or wolf. It was unique. His team carefully bagged the sample, excited by the tangible evidence. We felt like we had something solid this time, something that couldn't be easily dismissed, Myers recalled. But their excitement was short-lived. Within hours, a senior agent, a man I'd only seen a few times, arrived. He took the sample, gave us a blank look, and left. Just like that. No questions, no discussion. It was simply gone, taken away into that secret system. That little piece of fur, Agent Myers said, his voice laced with a deep, old frustration. It was everything. It was proof, real proof, that Bigfoot wasn't just a campfire story. It was right there in my hand. He remembered the weight of it, the coarse texture, the dark color. It was concrete, undeniable. But then, it was gone, snatched away, he continued, a bitter taste in his mouth. And there was nothing I could do. I was an FBI agent, but I was also just a cog in a much bigger machine. The feeling of helplessness was immense. He knew how important that tiny sample was, how it could change everything. He imagined the headlines, the scientific studies, the world finally understanding. But he couldn't keep it. He couldn't show it to his colleagues, his friends, or even his family. It felt like a piece of history was being stolen, right from under my nose, he sighed. And the worst part was knowing that I was part of the system that made it disappear. It was a secret I had to carry alone. It wasn't just the taking of evidence that bothered me, Agent Myers continued, his voice taking on a slightly harder edge. It was also how the public talk about Bigfoot. It's always made to sound silly, isn't it? He pointed out how news reports about Bigfoot sightings often poke fun, showing cartoon drawings or silly reenactments. Think about it, he urged. If someone reports seeing a mountain lion, it's serious news. But if it's Bigfoot, it's a joke, a funny story for late-night TV. He believed this wasn't by accident. It's a way to control what people believe, Myers explained. If you make something sound like a silly tale, no one will take it seriously. No one will go looking for real proof, and no one will believe the people who say they've seen something real. It was a clever trick, he thought, to keep the legend alive just enough to distract, but never enough to be truly believed. This way, the secret could stay safe, hidden in plain sight by making it seem like a harmless myth. So, when you put it all together, Agent Myers concluded, his voice firm, the constant taking of evidence, the hush-hush orders, and then the way Bigfoot is shown to the public, it all makes sense. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. It's a very clever plan, he explained. First, you make sure no real proof ever gets out, by having secret teams like mine collect it and hide it away. Then, you make sure that if anyone does talk about Bigfoot, they sound crazy. You make the whole idea seem like a fun story, a myth for kids, something not to be believed by serious people. This way, even if someone had a real encounter, they'd be afraid to share it, or no one would listen. It's the perfect way to keep a big, important truth hidden from everyone, forever, Myers said sadly. By controlling both the physical evidence and what people think and say, they keep the secret safe for whatever reason they have. Even with all I've seen, all I've pieced together, Agent Myers admitted, a look of deep thought on his face, I still don't have all the answers, not even close. He sighed, running a hand over his brow. He explained that the mystery of Bigfoot was like a giant puzzle with many missing pieces. We saw it. We found its hair, we tracked its prints, he said. We even saw how quickly our own government covered things up. But the why behind it all, the full picture of Bigfoot's life, its numbers, its exact nature, those questions still hang in the air. He had theories, strong ideas based on his experiences, but he lacked the complete, undeniable proof to connect every dot. After all those years of chasing shadows and collecting secrets, I learned a lot, Myers stated. But the biggest lesson was how much more there is to know, how deep the forest's secrets truly run, and how little we truly understand about the wild world around us. And with all those unanswered questions, a very simple thought kept coming back to me. Agent Myers shared, his gaze drifting to the window, lost in thought. Maybe Bigfoot doesn't want to be found. Not by us, not by humans at all. He considered this idea deeply. Think about it from their side, he suggested. They live in the wild, hidden from our cities and our busy lives. Maybe they've seen enough of us to know that being discovered would not be a good thing for them. He imagined a creature that values its peace, its freedom, and its secret way of life above all else. If they are as smart as I believe them to be, then their ability to disappear, their deep knowledge of the forest, all of it could be used for one main goal: to stay hidden. It wasn't just about escaping danger. It was about choosing a life apart, a life unknown to the modern world. The idea gave him a sense of peace, a respect for their choice to remain a mystery. If Bigfoot truly doesn't want to be found, Agent Myers mused, a soft smile touching his lips, then they must be incredibly good at being shy. Masters of hiding, you could say. He gestured vaguely towards the window, as if seeing the vast forests beyond. Think about how much wild land there is in this world, he prompted. Huge, untouched forests, mountains so tall you can barely see the tops, deep valleys where no human foot has ever stepped. These places, he believed, were Bigfoot's true home. They would know every tree, every path, every secret nook and cranny, Myers explained. They would blend in perfectly, their dark fur like shadows, their movements as quiet as falling leaves. It wasn't just about running away. It was about living a life of perfect camouflage, a deep respect for their natural surroundings that kept them unseen. They are part of the wild, he concluded, and the wild is very good at keeping its most precious secrets hidden. If Bigfoot chooses to stay hidden, then it must be because they are incredibly smart. Agent Myers said, his voice full of respect. Much smarter than many people give them credit for, thinking they are just dumb animals. He explained that Bigfoot's long survival in human-filled lands was not just luck. They use their deep knowledge of nature as their greatest shield. Myers stated, they know the best places to hide, where the thickest parts of the forest are, which caves led to safe tunnels. They know the sounds of the forest, which ones mean danger and which are harmless. This deep connection to the wild allows them to move without leaving obvious trails, to find food and shelter, and most importantly, to avoid people. It's like they have a living map of the wilderness in their heads, he mused. Every shadow, every rock, every stream is a tool for their survival. They are not just animals living in the wild. They are masters of it, using their natural smarts to stay safe from the world that would try to find them. Even with all the secrets I've kept and the truths I've uncovered, Agent Myers said, a spark in his tired eyes, there's one thing I truly hope for. I hope that one day, the real truth about Bigfoot will finally come out. He imagined a world where Bigfoot was no longer a joke or a hidden secret, but a recognized part of our planet. It's a big secret to keep from everyone, he stated. And it's not fair to the people who've seen them, who know they're real. It's not fair to the truth itself. He hoped that one day, perhaps after he was gone, all the hidden evidence, all the whispered stories, would finally be put together. I wish for a time when scientists can study them openly, when people can understand their place in nature without fear or silly stories, Myers said. It was a wish for the world to finally know the truth. to open its eyes to the wonders that still exist, hidden in plain sight. Agent Myers leaned back in his chair, a peaceful look settling on his face. Even though I'm no longer out there in the field, chasing down leads and uncovering secrets, he said, his voice soft, my belief in Bigfoot has only grown stronger. He explained that retirement hadn't dulled his sense of wonder. Instead, it had given him more time to think about all he had seen and experienced. I still believe they are out there, Myers stated firmly, living their lives, hidden from our view. He also held on to a deep belief in the many other mysteries that still exist in the world, the things science hasn't yet explained. The world is a much bigger, more surprising place than most people realize, he mused. And the idea that we know everything, that there are no more hidden wonders, is just plain wrong. For Agent Myers, Bigfoot was more than just a creature. It was a symbol of all the unknown, wild beauty that still existed, waiting to be discovered or perhaps simply respected from afar. So, what's the most important thing to take away from all this? Agent Myers asked, looking directly at his listener. It's not just about believing in Bigfoot. It's about how we look at the world around us. He encouraged everyone to keep an open mind. Don't let others tell you what's real and what's not, especially when it comes to the wild, he advised. There are still wonders out there, big and small, that we haven't found yet. More than that, he stressed the need to respect nature. These wild places, the deep forests, the high mountains, they are special. They are home to creatures we know, and maybe to creatures we don't. He urged people to treat these lands with care, not to go crashing through them, leaving trash or making loud noises. If Bigfoot lives there, they deserve their peace, Myers said. And if we ever hope to truly understand them, we must first learn to respect their home and their choice to remain hidden. Looking back on everything, all those years, all those close calls, Agent Myers reflected, his voice calm and clear. The biggest lesson I learned wasn't just about Bigfoot. It was about secrets themselves. He explained that while some secrets are kept by people, like the government's hidden files, there are other, even older secrets. Nature itself is a master secret keeper, Myers stated, looking out at the trees swaying gently in the breeze. The deep forests, the vast oceans, the high mountains, they hold wonders and creatures we can't even dream of. He believed that Bigfoot was one of nature's deepest secrets, protected not just by its own cleverness, but by the very wildness of the world. It's like the earth doesn't want us to know everything, he mused. It keeps some things special, hidden away from our busy world. And Bigfoot is one of those special, wild secrets, guarded by the silent, ancient power of nature itself. Thinking about all these layers of secrecy, both from nature and from people, brings me to one last important thought, Agent Myers said, his voice quiet but clear. The wild places of our world are truly amazing. They are full of wonders we still don't fully understand. He explained that we often think we know everything, thanks to maps and science books. But out there, in the deep woods and the high mountains, there are still so many things that surprise us, Myers mused. New plants, new bugs, even new animals are found all the time. And Bigfoot, to me, is the greatest example of these hidden wonders. It was a reminder that the world held more magic and mystery than our everyday lives often allowed us to see. Bigfoot is a puzzle, yes, he concluded, but it's also a symbol of how much more there is to discover, how much more there is to respect in the vast, wild heart of our planet. For me, the hunt for Bigfoot became more than just a job or even a mystery to solve. Agent Myers stated, a thoughtful look on his face. It became a teacher. He explained that the long, often frustrating search taught him important lessons about how to see the world. It taught me to look closer, he said, gesturing to the details in his living room, to pay attention to the small things, the broken branch, the strange smell, the quiet moment. These little clues, often overlooked, were keys to bigger truths. And most of all, he added, it taught me to be curious, to always ask why and what if, even when others laugh or say it's impossible. The idea that something so big could remain hidden for so long made him question everything he thought he knew. It pushed him to think outside the box, to imagine possibilities beyond what was written in books. The search for Bigfoot, Myers concluded, is really a search for the hidden wonders of our own world and a call to never stop being curious about them. So, when I think about why Bigfoot bodies keep disappearing, Agent Myers concluded, his voice firm and thoughtful, it's not just one simple answer. It's many things working together. He explained that it's a mix of Bigfoot's own amazing cleverness, its strong connection to its family, and its secret ways of hiding. They are masters of their world, Myers stated. They know how to vanish, how to heal, and how to use the deepest parts of nature to keep their secrets safe. But it's also about humans, he added. It's about our own government working in the shadows, taking away proof, and making Bigfoot seem like a silly tale. The disappearance of Bigfoot bodies, he said, is not just a mystery. It's a big sign. A sign of how clever these creatures are and how much they want to stay hidden. It's also a sign of how much we still don't know and how much is being kept from us. Mon Dieu,